Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies, and today it's the star episode. What are Bryce Harper, Trea Turner, and Zack Wheeler going to do this year to improve what they even did last year? We'll break it down on today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We come to you as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You may know me for some of my other work in the sports talk space. I've been on air over at 97.5 The Fanatic doing sports talk radio for a little over 5 years here at Philadelphia. I've been a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member for 3 seasons, and this is now my 4th year as the host of Locked On Phillies. Please make sure you're rating and reviewing if you're listening to this in podcast form. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. It's free. It's easy. It'll get you notifications when new episodes are posted when you hit that subscribe button. It also really helps us out here on Locked On Phillies. So I appreciate everyone who's done that and going to do that. So the funny thing about spring training for a team like the Philadelphia Phillies, who are a contender that are bringing back a lot of their players that have a lot of familiar faces, is we get caught up in talking about the fringe guys, the Weston Wilsons, the Buddy Kennedys, the Johan Rojas's, the 8th bullpen spot guys of the world, because that's what's up for grabs. The backup catcher, those are the interesting things, right? You know Bryce Harper's going to play first. You know Trea Turner's going to play shortstop. You know Zack Wheeler is the number 1 pitcher on this team. So you kind of just take that as a certainty, and in a daily podcast format, you talk about the more interesting topics. Well, guess what, folks? Bryce Harper, Trea Turner, and Zack Wheeler are still pretty darn interesting. And they're also pretty darn good at the game of baseball. And I haven't really gotten deep into their projections for the 2025 season yet. And again, part of that is living with the position battles and everything that you're going to see, and talking about the marginal guys that could make a difference on this year's team. But it's time to have an episode to talk about the stars. So we're going to talk about Bryce. We're going to talk about Trea. We're going to talk about Zack. Starting with Bryce, we're going to break down why the move to the 2 spot if Trea Turner's in the leadoff hole, it could be good for him. But regardless of where he hits, he could be in for a really, really big year, a monster year. And there's a reason why for it that I think is pretty logical. Also with Trea, the move to the leadoff spot has been looked at more as like Kyle Schwarber's not batting leadoff anymore, rather than Trea Turner's going to get another shot to prove himself. Is it a potential pitfall? And also, we're going to touch a little bit on Trea Turner defensively. And then Zack Wheeler, we're going to round out with by talking about his Cy Young case for 2025, because, man, was he close last year. If Chris Sale didn't have a monster year, Zack Wheeler would become the first Philadelphia Phillies pitcher since Roy Halladay to win the National League Cy Young Award. And maybe this is the year. It certainly could be. I don't see any reason why he couldn't be that guy, but I'll talk to you about what needs to happen for him to be that guy. So we will break down all of that. But let's start with our boy Bryce, because he is the de facto leader of this team on the field. Now, Kyle Schwarber may be the leader of this team in the locker room, because Bryce is not as outspoken as Kyle Schwarber when it comes to discussing stuff with the guys and with the media. But it's not like Bryce Harper's quiet. It's not like Bryce Harper comes in and sits in the corner and doesn't talk to his guys, doesn't motivate his guys, doesn't let his passion show and try and let that seep into the way the other guys play the game. So Bryce Harper is one of the main leaders on this team, and he will always, as long as he's here with the Philadelphia Phillies, be the face of this team. It's Bryce's team. I don't care who you bring in. I don't care who you lose. He is the guy that is going to be the face of this team. And that's what happened when he signed that major contract, and that's what he signed up for. And until now, he's the face of teams that have seen disappointment in October, ultimately. Now, there have been great successes, and he was a huge part of the greatest success that this team has had so far with this core. That swing of his life, bedlam at the bank, whatever you want to call it, home run against the San Diego Padres in the 2022 NLCS series that was unbelievable. It's one of my favorite Philadelphia sports moments of all time. It's one of the biggest moments of Philadelphia Phillies history of all time. It is the biggest moment of this era. It is. So he knows what it takes to have big moments on the biggest stages, and yet the team hasn't summited the mountaintop. So you better believe he's feeling pressure. And he had a great year last year, like a sneaky great year, because remember, he again had an injury issue here or there, and that seems to have become a constant for Bryce Harper as he ages into his early 30s. But look at the numbers that he put up last year. Again, in 2024, he batted .285 with 30 home runs in 550 at-bats. He went out there and played Gold Glove caliber defense at the first base position. He was a monster over there. He did not win the Gold Glove, but he was a nominee for that. He was the all-star starter at first base for the National League. He has been an all-star 2 of the last 3 years. And the interesting thing about Bryce is the home run total over the past 3 years has actually gone up. Now, in 2021, with the Philadelphia Phillies, he went out and he hit, 35 home runs on his way to winning the National League MVP back in 2021. Then he followed up that MVP season in 2022 by showing off the power to the tune of 18. Now, of course, that was the injury season. And then in 2023, he comes back and he's working back power 21 homers. This past year, 30 homers. We don't think about position players the way that we think about pitchers, right? But there's this idea with pitchers who return from Tommy John surgery, which of course we know Bryce Harper had and returned to faster than anybody we've ever seen in professional baseball. There's this idea with pitchers that say, okay, well, you're going to get the surgery, you're going to spend a year recovering. Then you're going to potentially throw the next year. And then you're going to finally be back 2 years after. So you have the surgery, the recovery, the play for a year. The next year is the one that you're back. Well, let's look at it this way. Bryce Harper gets hurt in 2022. He has the year recovery. That takes us to 2023. He plays for a year. That takes us to 2024. And then it takes us to where we're at in 2025. The power has been increasing once again. And I don't think we give enough credit to that timeline that we would use for pitchers. Now, I'm not saying that Bryce Harper is going to go out there and he's going to hit 35 home runs like he did in 2021. But I am telling you, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, adding 5 more on what he did last year, and there were points last year where he didn't have the world's best season, I think that's absolutely a possibility. He had a major homer drought last year, and he still hit 30 bombs. He had a great year. Like, when you look at Bryce Harper's numbers, he had an outstanding season by any normal baseball player's metrics. The problem is he's Bryce Harper. And you almost expect him to hit 300 with 40 bombs every year because he's done it so many times in his career, or a couple times in his career. And that's probably not fair, but here's my thing with Bryce Harper. Anytime you start to believe that he's not capable of doing something again, you're proven wrong. Anytime you think this guy is not going to have a moment, he has a moment. Anytime you call him overrated or washed if you're an opposing fan, he's going to hit a home run. Like, maybe not to the level of Juan Soto. If you haven't seen what Juan Soto did, he was getting called overrated by a guy. And then his next at bat, he hit a home run like directly at the dude, which was wild. But I digress. Bryce Harper has that type of ability in him. So here's my thing with Bryce Harper. I think he's going to have a monster year at the plate when it comes to his power numbers, because I think he is on track with that Tommy John recovery. And he may even be a little bit further behind that track than we think, considering how fast he came back from that injury. Now, he's going to have to stay healthy. Injuries have become a slight concern for Bryce Harper, but he's clearly doing everything he can still to help this team win, willing to move to right field in case the team wanted to bring in a power-hitting first baseman like Pete Alonso, was willing to move to first base in the first place to give this team the best chance to win. He's willing to do whatever it takes for this Philadelphia Phillies team to move the second in the lineup, even though he'd probably rather be batting in the 3-hole where he's batted basically his whole career. Like, this dude is selfless, he's focused, and he understands that he's got some guys that he loves playing with, that he recruited himself, guys like JT Realmuto and Kyle Schwarber, that are going to potentially be in their last year's Philadelphia Phillies this year. So he wants to go out and win it for those guys. Don't be surprised. I'll say, yeah, okay, I'm comfortable with this. I had to think if this was going too far. I don't think 35 home runs is out of the question for Bryce Harper. I don't think it is at all. Honestly, if you gave me the over-under on 34.5 Bryce Harper home runs, I'm taking the over right now. And part of that is health. part of that is I think being in the 2-hole is going to give him a little bit of a different situation than where he was at in the 3-hole. I think he's going to have maybe a little bit more protection there, considering he now has Kyle Schwarber batting behind him, not directly, but behind him. So there may be a lack of focus there. Trea Turner on the base pass, hopefully more often. Like if he bats 2, look out for a big Bryce Harper year. If he bats 3, look out for a big Bryce Harper year. If he bats 9, look out for a big Bryce Harper year. Now, I know he's not going to, but what this comes down to is I think we are missing the fact and the shuffle of how's this lineup's approach? Who's batting leadoff? The fact that Bryce Harper is still very much in his prime of being a baseball player. And I don't think we've seen the last monster year out of Bryce Harper. And when I sat down to think about it today, I was like, well, the more I look at the circumstantial evidence, the more I say, could this be the next monster Bryce Harper year? The trends are heading in the right way. I mean, we talked about the home runs going up over the last couple of years. Let's just take a look at where the batting averages have been the last couple of years. Pretty darn consistent. 286 in 2022, 293 in 2023, 285 last year. So he hasn't dipped in his ability to put the ball in play. The only thing that's dropped off and then now resurged has been the power. He's still a great baseball player, folks. He just needs to feel more like himself from a couple of major injuries that he had. And I think this is the year where he's going to do it. Now, a guy that hasn't really dealt with injuries, he did have one last year with a hamstring, but it's been more so self-inflicted wounds for Trea Turner since coming to Philadelphia. Had his best year in a Phillies uniform last year. And now he's getting tasked with arguably the most scrutinized spot on this baseball team, the leadoff hitter. There's a lot of conversation about it. So how ready is Trea Turner to step into that role? We will discuss that coming up as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. All right, let's talk about my friends over at Wonderful Pistachios, though. I got my still empty bag of the sea salt and vinegar pistachios because I crushed these so quickly. I mean, they're amazing. I get the no shells version. And the best part about Wonderful Pistachios is it's a snack that's both delicious and nutritious. You can crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios, which is something that I'm working on with summer right around the corner. It's one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Listen, they're not potato chips. These are an awesome snack. They're good for you. Honestly, they're great tasting. They got everything. They're just the elite level snack. And like I said, I love the no shells version, so I can just crack the bag open and basically pour them into my mouth. But if you want to crack the nuts like your regular pistachio experience, they got those as well. They got a bunch of different seasonings and flavors. They're great for a quick protein boost, a snack on the go. It's just awesome. They're the perfect snack. They're packaged perfectly. They got the resealable little zipper at the top if you're watching on YouTube. So if you only have a little bit of it, you can seal it back up and throw it in your bag and get moving. So they've got everything you should want in a snack to help you get ready for the summer or really year round. Just make sure that you're enjoying snack time, but also staying in great shape and getting the proteins you needed. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, let's have a conversation about the one and only Trea Turner. Trea Turner has had such an interesting start to his Philadelphia Phillies career. He signs a monster contract, and everyone goes, wow, this is our next guy. This is the dude who's going to make the difference in the Philadelphia Phillies getting over the hump to win the World Series. And then he goes out his first year and flat out stinks. Has the worst year of his career, a year that nobody thought Trea Turner was capable of having with the track record he had put together as a Major League Baseball player. And then everybody just goes, what in the world did we do? Did we just give a double-digit year contract to a lemon? How do we bounce back from this? He can't play defense. He can't hit. He's got no mental toughness. All of this stuff was said about Trea Turner. And the standing ovation was a nice thing. But lost in the standing ovation is the fact that he didn't exactly turn back into himself. He played better after that, but he wasn't the Trea Turner you paid for. So you remember the old expression, you can never get a chance to make another first impression, right? First impressions matter, and they matter in the city of Philadelphia because we are a fickle fan base. And since the first impression of his first year with the Phillies, Trea Turner has been fighting an uphill battle. Now, after last year, I'd be willing to say he's starting to win or turn the tides of that uphill battle, at least for me. I am not the world's biggest Trea Turner guy to the point that I am with like a guy like Bryce Harper and Zack Wheeler, because frankly, Trea Turner has underperformed his contract to this point. He has. He was the all-star starter at shortstop last year. That is a major accomplishment. That is great. He had a strong year last year that we're going to talk about in a second. But Trea Turner, to this point in his Philadelphia Phillies tenure, is getting paid X amount and playing Y amount, and those numbers do not equal. Now, is Trea Turner still one of the better shortstops in baseball? Absolutely. Has he been terrible for the Philadelphia Phillies? No, no shot. Like, he's been a good player for them. He's been a above average player for them, but you're paying him to be great. And that's where the issues lie with Trea Turner so far. And you know what? To be fair to him, last year, he was pretty darn close to great. He batted .295. He had 21 homers. At the dish, he was really darn good. So that is the sign to me that says, okay, not that Trea Turner can hit a baseball, not that Trea Turner can have a high average, not that he can create power, not any of that stuff. You know what that says to me more than anything else? Because we've seen him do that before in his career. It says he's finally comfortable. He's finally settled into who he's going to be here in Philadelphia. He is a guy that has gone out now in 2 seasons, had a really, really rough year, and then a really, really good year. Remember, 2023, he pops on the scene as the guy that's supposed to help him get him over the hump for the World Series, and that doesn't go well. 2024, he went out there and he had a Trea Turner year. And guess what? He even has more. I mean, just look at some of the numbers that he's had in past years when it comes to what he's capable of doing. Now, he is another one of those players that's an aging player. But look at 2021, his first time making an all-star team. He went out and he hit 28 home runs while in 595 at-bats. So he was durable and batted .328. That's an unbelievable season, and it's a reason why he was 5th in the MVP voting. Now, he's never been higher than 11th since. That was in 2022 in the final year of his deal with the Dodgers before he became a free agent and signed with the Phillies. But, like, that guy's still out there. The home run totals, he's normally going to be around 20. Remember, before coming to Philadelphia, he'd only cleared 20 twice in his career. He's cleared 20 in home runs both of his years here in Philadelphia. So you got to feel good about his chances to get to 20 again, but that should show you right there he's not totally underperforming the contract. I just think he's got more in him. Could you imagine if he couples one of those seasons of 20-plus homer power with a greater than 300 batting average? The funny thing is I see all of these predictions of who's going to lead the National League in batting average, and it's Luis Arraez and all of these guys behind him. And Luis Arraez deserves credit for that. He's been an absolute monster when it comes to putting balls in play. But, I mean, Trea Turner not that long ago was putting up batting averages that were almost unheard of in this era. In 2021, batting .328. The year before that in Washington, batting .335 in this shortened season from COVID in 2020. I mean, the year before that, .298. The year with the Dodgers in 2022 before he came here, .298. I mean, .295. The anomaly year for Trea Turner was the .266 he had in 2023. The only problem was it was his first impression spot. So how does Trea Turner have even a better year this year? Well, there's 2 things that can happen this year. There's 2 paths, and I'll tell you why I think Trea Turner is going to take the positive one. He's going to bat leadoff, right? I know that he's going to bat leadoff for a large part of this season. Now, here's the problem. Last time he tried to bat leadoff, it did not go well. He got about 14 games worth of work in there. He was not hitting. It was in his first year here in Philadelphia. They made the change immediately. They said, Kyle Schwarber, you're going back. You're batting leadoff. We can't flounder away with a guy at the top of the lineup who's having a terrible stretch. I think the intention was always to move him back there at some point, and then Kyle Schwarber was a monster, and Trea Turner continued to be rough, and they just said, screw it. We're not going to have him bat leadoff. Well, that's something that we're not the only ones who remember that, folks. Trea Turner remembers that. So when he gets told this year, hey, buddy, you're going to be our leadoff hitter again, there's part of him that probably has some doubts. That probably thinks about the last time he tried to hold that position down, the time he did not get it done for the city of Philadelphia and how it made him feel and what it did for his performance. Maybe he thinks I'm not a leadoff hitter anymore. Now, maybe he'll go the other way, which is take this not as a return to a place where he's failed before, but a vote of confidence from the organization. I don't think Kyle Schwarber needs a vote of confidence from the Philadelphia Phillies. That dude knows he's going to roll out and basically hit 40 bombs every year until he stops playing baseball. He's just one of the great power hitters in today's game. Underrated, to be honest. When we look back on Kyle Schwarber's career, he will have been underrated during his career as a power hitter. He's really, really good. But he doesn't need the confidence. I'm not saying they're just making this move just for a confidence thing for Trea Turner, but I'm saying I don't think it'll make Schwarber less confident. I do think, though, that Trea Turner is going to look at this and say, okay, it didn't work out the first time. I went and had a strong year last year. I feel like I'm back to myself. I'm ready to bat in the spot in the lineup that I'm probably best for when all things are clicking. And I'm going to go ahead and take the bull by the horns and take care of that opportunity. I mean, if Trea Turner goes out there and bats over 300 at the leadoff spot, do you understand what that does for this team? Like, you had to have Trea a little bit further down the lineup, and it wasn't like way down the lineup. He was still in the top 4, batting like 2 consistently last year. But now you do that to lead off a game, and then you have a guy like Bryce Harper behind him. I mean, that is pretty solid. And then also, you get into a situation where you see how Kyle Schwarber jumps on pitches and creates all these opportunities by making people uncomfortable to start the game. That's because some guys aren't zoned in. You know what else happens when you're not zoned in? Walks. Walks lead to Trea Turner on base. He did last year more than he did the first year of Phillies in a Phillies uniform, stole more bases. Like, this just gives Trea Turner the opportunity to do one of two things: take his game to the next level, turn it up with this new opportunity, or fade back into the guy he was. And the numbers show you that the guy he was in 2023 when he first came here is not the guy he's ever been in his career and has not been in the year since. So signs would point to Trea Turner being ready for the leadoff spot. And if he can be a Bryce Harper caliber player, I don't see that, because I still think Bryce is the overall clearly better player. But man, could that be a major boon for the Philadelphia Phillies into their ceiling? Like, this is a talented team. Do you hear the guys I'm talking about? Do you hear the stuff they've accomplished and can still accomplish? If you're not set on those guys, let's talk about a dude who everybody in this city loves. He may be one of the most sneaky, beloved athletes in Philadelphia right now because he just handles his business, but he has not summited the mountaintop yet of individual success. What has Zack Wheeler got in store for the 2025 season? Let's talk about the ace coming up as we wrap up the star episode of Locked On Phillies here on today's episode. All right, let's talk about SupplyHouse first, though, because you can get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. That's SupplyHouse. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, SupplyHouse is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website, it's packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. So you know what you're buying, why you're buying it, how it's coming to you, everything. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you're going to find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Chances are, if you need something, they not only have exactly what you need, they have exactly what you need from multiple brands at multiple prices, so you can figure out exactly how you want to get everything done. Need help with an order? Well, SupplyHouse offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, they got this great program. It's called their free Trade Master program. It offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. So join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5. That's S as in supply, H as in house, the number 5, for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. All right, of all the stars on the team, of all the guys that you look at and say, wow, that guy is an amazing baseball player. He is top of the heap when it comes to his position or what the Philadelphia Phillies need from him, or all of these things that you say about the great players of today's game. There may be one that stands above the rest, and it's not Bryce Harper, and it's not Trea Turner. The guy that is probably nearest to the top of individual prominence in the sport right now is one Zack Wheeler, who was the runner-up for National League Cy Young last year, had an outstanding season, probably had a better case than some people would care to admit to try and win the award. Now, I said in jest a lot last year, Zack Wheeler had the Cy Young stolen. Chris Sale was absolutely the deserving Cy Young winner for the National League last year. He was unbelievable. But Chris Sale had like an all-time season by a guy who has been considered one of the great pitchers of this era. And that's what it takes to stop Zack Wheeler from winning a Cy Young with the way that he's currently throwing the baseball. He has been outstanding the last couple of years for the Philadelphia Phillies. He has been durable. He has been dominant. And he is locked down for the long term. So the Philadelphia Phillies don't have to worry about the future of Zack Wheeler. And Zack Wheeler doesn't have to worry about the future of himself. He can just go out there and chuck the way he's done the last couple of years. And last year was his magnum opus as a Philadelphia Philly. In 2022, he went out there and pitched to a 2.82 ERA. Actually, let's start with 2021, where he was an all-star and pitched to a 2.78. And then 2023, he had kind of a weird year. He pitched to a 3.61, and he clearly didn't seem right. He had like the shoulder issues. They tried to kind of work on handling that coming out of the 2022 season, but he didn't really seem like he was fully up to his own level. And the Phillies, well, they made their way into the postseason as a wild card team, and then they went on a run again. But I think the trends of deep postseason runs were bothering Zack Wheeler a little bit. He's a guy that prior to coming to Philadelphia did not pitch deep into the postseason or anything like that in his career. And then you get him into a situation where in 2021, he throws 213 and a third innings pitch, then 153, then 192, then 200. Like he's had a lot of usage for the Philadelphia Phillies. So it's something that his body takes time to get used to. But he showed last year that he is up for being the horse of this rotation. And I don't see any signs of Zack Wheeler slowing down. The funny thing about Zack Wheeler is the conversation surrounding him is almost boring because of how consistent he is. He does the same stuff every time. Like Aaron Nola is so much more fun to talk about than Zack Wheeler because Aaron Nola, you have the conversation of what Nola are we getting this year? Is it an even year? Is it an odd year? Is it the fourth inning? Are you going to give up a bomb because of the Rav fourth inning promo that's going on NBC Sports Philadelphia? Like Aaron Nola is the mystery box. And even though he's what I just said, the mystery box, he's a very, very good pitcher as well. But at least there's a little bit of variance there to Aaron Nola. We like variance because it makes us feel like we're watching something unpredictable. Zack Wheeler almost makes us feel like we're watching a kid play a video game against his older brother, and the older brother's just smoking him. Like every time Zack Wheeler steps on the mound, you almost expect him to go 7 innings of shutout ball. And more often than most pitchers in baseball, you'd be correct. So what does Zack Wheeler have in the tank to go out and be the best pitcher in the National League and maybe the best pitcher in baseball this year? Well, basically all he has to do is keep doing what he's doing, right? Zack Wheeler's 2024 season was the equivalent of a guy hitting a 100-mile-an-hour exit velocity line drive directly at a fielder. Like, you didn't do anything wrong. You just didn't get rewarded for your efforts. So what do you do the next at bat? Do you change it? No. You go up there and you put together the same approach, and you hope that when you make contact with the next ball, you get a little more launch on it, or you find a gap, or whatever happens to put that ball in the play to where it's not caught. Zack Wheeler, if he goes out and he has the same season, I mean, again, listen to some of these numbers from 2024. The ERA, just to go back to that, 2.57, 200 even innings pitched. Win-loss percentage, 696. He went 16-7 as far as the win-loss record is concerned. He had a pitching WAR of 6.1. Unbelievable work there. I mean, he didn't even have a shutout. Multiple pitchers. I think the Phillies had 4 complete game shutouts, and none of them were by Zack Wheeler. He's going to go out and get one of those this year. I firmly believe it. He walked 52 guys, which is more than what he did the last 2 years, which to me says he's chasing the strikeout a little bit more, which would seem to stand to reason considering he had 224 strikeouts last season, more than 2023, more than 2022, more than any other season in his career since 2021 when he had 247. So Zack Wheeler, all he has to do is go out there and be the guy that he's been, and he's the picture of consistency. Does the rotation behind him help? I think that's not true. Like, I don't look at Jesus Luzardo's acquisition, a better starting 5, as a kind of reason why Zack Wheeler is going to have a better year. But we do see the pitching staff sometimes pitch with momentum. And Taijuan Walker was a bit of a killer of that momentum at points last year. If Jesus Luzardo throws well, and there's just this constant cycle of, hey, everyone's throwing well, we're building off of each other. That's what we saw earlier on in the season when Spencer Turnbull was at the back end of the Phillies rotation last year. It could be another great sorry, not could. It will be another great year for Wheels as long as he stays healthy. And we're going to see some high-level pitching. He's got as good a shot as anybody at taking home a Cy Young award. Could you imagine the Phillies realistically having 2 MVP candidates and a Cy Young candidate? That is not far-fetched, right? Well, maybe it is with Shohei Ohtani as an MVP candidate as well, and Juan Soto now there. But like those guys playing at that level is not crazy, and that should show you where the ceiling of this team is. Sometimes it really is just about the stars getting the job done. So hopefully this episode made you feel better about the top-level talent the Philadelphia Phillies had. And just a reminder, hey, these guys are amazing, and they're playing baseball in your city. But there are other things that we have to work out. So as we get back to the marginal stuff in future episodes and start to figure out who's going to actually make the team in those final spots, we will cover everything else. I just want to talk about the big boys for an episode and why they all could be in for a big year. So that's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Please make sure, again, you're rating, reviewing, hitting that subscribe button on the YouTube channel. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I'll talk to you tomorrow on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.